Of course, expanding prosperity is what you work for at the Business Council, so I'm pleased to have this opportunity to meet with you. It has been a little more than a year since I last spoke to the members of this organization, and over the past year I've appreciated the advice offered by many of the leaders in this room as we've grappled with a set of very difficult economic challenges. I am here today to reiterate the importance of this partnership and the importance of seeking common ground. I recognize we're not going to agree on every single item, but as I indicated to a group of your members last night, my door is always open. For ultimately, I believe the success of the American economy depends not on the efforts of government, but on the innovation and enterprise of America's businesses. And it will be America's businesses that help us emerge from this period of economic crisis and economic turmoil. Now, the fact is, these have been a tough 2 years for our country. I don't need to tell you that. At the height of the recession, countless businesses had to shut their doors. Trillions of dollars in savings were lost, forcing seniors to postpone retirement and young people to forego college, entrepreneurs to give up on starting up a company. Many businesses that remained standing had to let people go, and some of you had to make some painful decisions. And more than 8 million men and women lost their jobs during the course of the downturn. And just about every day I hear from some of these people, people who are out of work. I hear from them through letters that I receive each night or in town halls that I've held across America. Every once in a while I hear from children seeking to make sense of what's happening in their families, of the sadness and uncertainty that they don't fully understand. And it's a reminder that what has happened is not just an economic problem, it is a human tragedy. It's for this reason that my administration has maintained a relentless focus on reviving the economy and job growth. And in order to deal with this crisis, we've had to make a number of difficult decisions, some of which are very unpopular. But as many of you have reported, today we're beginning to see some hopeful signs. When I last spoke to members of the Business Council soon after taking office, the economy was losing an average of 750,000 jobs each month. Today, America is adding jobs again. Many of the businesses in this room have resumed hiring, which is welcome news. Last year, the economy was in free fall. Today, the economy is growing again. In fact, we've seen the fastest turnaround in growth in nearly 3 decades. And while we had been seeing a steady decline in manufacturing, we learned yesterday that manufacturing expanded in April for the 9th consecutive month, and at the fastest pace in nearly 6 years. Now, by no stretch of the imagination can we declare victory. Not until the millions of our neighbors who are looking for work can find work. Not until incomes and economic security are actually increasing for middle-class families, many who saw their income and wages flatline even during boom times in the 90s and over the last decade, after the 90s rather. And not until we face the weaknesses in our economy that preceded this recession, problems that have been allowed to fester for decades. We've been reminded of late that we can also face at any time a sudden and costly crisis that can harm our economy. One of the discussions that we had last night is around the BP oil spill, which is going to affect the lives and livelihoods of people all along the Gulf Coast, from the fishing industry to the tourism industry. We are committed to preventing as much of the economic damage as possible by working to contain the impact of this potentially devastating spill. In addition, wherever possible, I would like to see the people most affected by the disaster employed in helping in the cleanup. And we will continue to explore every possible option to create jobs and support local economies in the Gulf while continuing to monitor any potential effects on the national economy. But obviously there's going to be a significant challenge, and we are going to be working overtime to make sure that we mitigate its impacts. More broadly, spurring job creation and economic expansion continues to be our #1 domestic priority. That's why, as I've said since the very beginning of my administration, we can't just rebuild the economy to where it was. We're going to have to rebuild it stronger than before. We've got to rebuild it on a new foundation of lasting growth. We have to tackle structural problems, from education to energy, from our financial system to our healthcare system, from our trade imbalance to our fiscal imbalance, that didn't just lead to 2 years of recession, but a decade of economic insecurity for middle-class families. Now, there's a legitimate question about what the government's role can and should be in bringing about this new foundation for growth. And if you turn on cable news, you might run into folks with some strong feelings and also some misleading claims about the view of my administration on the subject. What has guided me throughout the last year and a half, what has informed the decisions I've made, is a fundamental belief in markets that are free and open to all who are willing to work hard and pursue their talents. I believe businesses like yours are what drive growth and create the conditions in which families and small businesses can thrive. And I believe America's greatest strength has always been society, that it's a society that values and rewards the ingenuity of people. That doesn't relieve government of its responsibility to help foster sustained economic growth and to ensure that our markets are functioning freely. Government can't light a spark in the mind of an engineer, but it can help an engineering student get loans to pay her tuition. Government will seldom be the source of new and innovative products, but it can invest in basic research that isn't necessarily profitable in the near term, but that holds vast potential in the long term. Government can build the infrastructure that allows products and services to reach customers. Government can create incentives in clean energy, for example, that promote innovation and exports. These things are public goods that no business, no individual is going to provide on their own, but that create a favorable environment in which everybody, companies across the country, can open and expand. And that's why, as part of this new foundation that we seek to build, we're investing in education, because our economic success depends on making sure people have the skills to match their talents. So we launched a national competition last year to improve our schools based on a simple idea. Instead of funding the status quo, we'll only invest in reform. We've recently announced the first winners in what we're calling this race to the top. And across America, it's making a difference as states are implementing reforms to raise student achievement, to improve education in math and science, and to turn around failing schools that steal the future of too many young Americans. As part of this effort, I've promised to speak at a high school commencement every year to highlight schools that are encouraging excellence and preparing their students for college and careers. And today, in fact, after a vote to narrow down the finalists on our website, whitehouse.gov, we announced that I'm going to be speaking to graduates of Kalamazoo Central High School in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So those of you based in Michigan, you should be pleased. Go Giants. That's, we're looking forward to talking to those young people. We've also set this goal. America will once again have the highest proportion of college graduates in the world by 2020. And we're making progress towards meeting that. Congress passed legislation that will make college more affordable by ending unnecessary taxpayer subsidies that go to financial intermediaries for student loans. The bill also includes one of the most significant investments in community colleges in history, because community colleges are a career pathway for the children of so many working families. And last night during our discussion, one of the things, a theme that continually came up was the fact that there are a lot of skilled jobs out there that don't necessarily require a four-year college degree, but they're not being filled because we haven't done a good enough job on just basic math, high school math skills, for example. We see our investment in the community colleges as a potential way to bridge that, even as we're working on improving K through 12 outcomes. We are seeing rising enrollment in both 2- and 4-year schools across America. We want to make sure that those folks who are enrolling are getting the best education possible so they can serve effectively as part of your workforce. Next, we've tackled what's been an undeniable drag on our economy, and that's the cost of health care. And I appreciate the willingness of many of the leaders in this room, including Ron and Angela and some folks that I spoke to yesterday, to work with us and advise us on this issue. I believe that the passage of this legislation is good for America's businesses. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, 4 million small business owners found a postcard from the IRS in their mailboxes, and it was actually one of those rare moments in which something from the IRS was a welcome discovery. Because of the reforms that were passed, millions of small business owners are eligible for a health care tax cut this year, worth perhaps tens of thousands of dollars to help afford the coverage they provide to their employees.